Hey there, this is Ben Morse, creator of August Purgatory Underground, and just want to do a quick stream as we're closing out this campaign on Zoop. Today, we have about, as of right now, 11 hours and 46 minutes, so just about 12 hours. Still have about in the neighborhood of $700 to go, so coming right up on that deadline. We've had a great last couple of days, and to all of you who have shared the campaign, who have supported the campaign, obviously, retweets, all that stuff. It is just hugely appreciated. Like I've said before, if you've been following along some of my posts, I love working on Scarlet Twilight. I have a bunch of other comics I'm working on, and I love doing some stuff that I'm creating with other creators and collaborating with. But August is the one that I just love working on this comic. This is the character, that I just put everything into all the stuff that I grew up with, things just basically things I guess I think about the world, and I'm just really everything I've kind of got. It's in this story, so it's the character that means the most to me. And I kind of wanted to start showing off some artwork, not just from the current campaign we got up now, but just from other stuff I've been working on with the character, because I want to show people that you're not just getting this one book, although this campaign is for this book. It is the beginning of a lot more I'm going to do with this character. It's going to be going on a long time. It's going to be a pretty big, sprawling, series of books. There's going to be a lot to dig into if you join in this campaign. So this is book one. I'll show off a little bit of this here. A lot in this. I've mentioned before, I've been working on this one for, I'd say, a little over 10 years, all in all. This current version I really started developing in 2019 when I got picked up by a publisher. But there's so much extra stuff because I've just been with this character so long. I've tried to be developing a story for so long. And, it just means the world to me. So I'm glad that not only is it out there a little bit, but I'm glad that we have this format to show off, because you can see some of the stuff that went into this, all the things that really mattered to me, and visually things I wanted to bring into the story, just things that make it fun. So I hope if you checked out the campaign, it's over on zoop.gg right now. And like I said, just a little bit of time left to get in on this one. And I want to show off a little bit of what you get here. Obviously, you're looking at the table of contents. We have issues 1 through 4. We have a prequel that is about 13 pages, and it's kind of comprised of previous drafts I've done over the years with the character. It was kind of the intro scene for a few different versions of the pitch. And I kind of found as I was going through it, not only did they kind of fit together pretty well, aside from the art style changing a little bit, they also were, they worked with the larger, what ended up being the final story. It didn't have any continuity conflicts or anything like that. So it was awesome to be able to include that without too much explanation. You get to see the cover gallery, which is, again, all the covers that you saw in the Red 5 version, if you had seen that in the shops. And in addition, there's a few other unused covers that you'll only see here. You see a timeline that kind of shows you a little bit more of where the story is going to go. And then obviously there's a bunch of development art that shows off just all the stuff that went into this. So really cool to see that, I think. And, I hope everybody will kind of want to get in on this. But I'll kind of go through and show everybody, not the whole story, of course. Make this full screen here. There we go. Scroll through here. See some of the extras, which is really fun. Here's the covers. So obviously, you just get to see it without the trade dress, which is fun. It's the prequel. I'll show a few pages of that real quick. And that's some of the really fun stuff, I think. We're just showing off where this is going to go. How much I've got planned for it, what the next chapter is going to be. The book 4 that you see there is actually going to be the next one I do. So we're going to get the beginning and the end. And then we're going to go back and do 2 and 3. And I think these are the main books right now. And these are always going to be the pillars of the story. There may be sort of different formatted things I do in between or before these books. So I think I've always kind of wanted to do like a longer run that would be almost like where you can set up subplots, kind of do a Claremont type of thing, just have a longer, sort of more traditional comic book run. And that's something I'm definitely looking to do between books 1 and 2, probably before book 1. But these main 4 stories are going to be the real backbone of everything you see. So those are the ones I'm really excited about. those are the ones I think are going to be next to each other on a shelf and just look awesome set up all together. So that's definitely something I think people are going to want to check out. I know that's the type of franchise I've always liked to follow. You stay with the character a long time, you see the world and the side characters evolve in a big way, and that's just kind of what I wanted to do with this. So, in addition to just getting this book out and showing all the cool stuff that's in it, I wanted to also just show you, there's a lot more of this that's going to come down the pike. There's a lot more in the works. So, definitely wanted to kind of tease that out and show the scope of this world and what it's eventually going to be. So, something I always like to show off. And then another favorite thing is it's been 10 plus years of work on this. And going with that, there's a lot of unused art. The one you see on the left there is actually the first design sketch I had of the character, and liked how that worked out. Kind of was a direction, I think. And the first time that I really had okay, that's a good starting point, and kind of refined it from there. So that was really, the first sketch. And then right next to you see one of the last sketches that's actually some blown up line art from the book. It's pretty late in book 4, or in issue 4. Sorry. So it's kind of beginning and the end, at least as you see them in this story. Some unused covers, some roughs, different studies I did just to work things out. And there's also in this book a ton of promotional stuff that I just did for fun, kind of to use in different parts of the book. My sort of larger kind of meta story for this is I was wanting to approach it like it was a Saturday morning cartoon that you just kind of never saw or you forgot about. Wanted to really, generate some of the artwork that would be around if it's been around in the 80s and had been revived a few times, like G.I. Joe was, like Transformers has been, that sort of thing. So a big part of that was creating, all that different stuff. And that's what I really like, as far as like being able to show off in the art book, but also just like to have and to be able to put in the background of, like sort of sell sheets for this or ads, make it look like it had been around all that time. And it was fun to do that, obviously, because so much of this stuff comes from stuff that was around when I was a kid. These trading cards are all based on like different Marvel cards, X-Men cards, or in the case of the one in the top left is from Batman the movie, the 89 set, which I had a ton of. I think maybe still do. Not quite sure. You can see a lot of alternate looks at the villains. They evolved a lot over the development of the story, both visually and in terms of plot points. So you could see a lot more of that. There's just a ton of great artwork here that, that didn't really have an outlet until we had this collection or the opportunity to do that. So really excited, I think, to just finally have a place to do that, which is going to be, I think, one of the biggest fun things about reading this book. So absolutely want to, just let everybody know all the stuff that's in it. I think it's a great, I know the hardcover is a big price point, which is something I kind of struggled with. I really like to keep the price point low as I can, but wanted to also have a good way to just get all this artwork out there and have a nice big volume that's going to look really nice on your shelf. So it's definitely the idea behind some of this. Another thing I kind of wanted to show, just so people can kind of see all the stuff that you're sort of being able to, I guess, get in on the ground floor of, is there's a lot planned for further chapters of this story. So book 4 is something I've also been working on for maybe, I think at this point, probably started working on this one in about 2015. So it's coming up in about 10 years as well. And it's the end of the story, basically. It's kind of the Dark Knight Returns of the whole August, adventure. And I thought, the more I developed, I've got pretty good drafts of all 4 chapters, books, basically. But the more I looked at them, the more I just kept finding myself drawn to doing the last one next. And I thought about that. The way I read Batman comics in the 80s was I read, Year One and Dark Knight Returns, and that was kind of like every other thing I read about the character. It was really tied into that. It was really informed by, he started off, doing stuff he did in Year One. He's going to kind of end up, and I even knew then that Dark Knight Returns wasn't strictly canon, but I always read those issues mentally thinking he's in the middle of those 2 chapters, and I really liked that. So the more I thought about that, I thought of cool ways to do the second, the next second book actually being the last book. And I think there's a lot of cool things I can do on chapters 2 and 3 that are going to tie into that in a big way that I think can make those events that'll happen in between there even more tense, because a few of the things that happen to him in the future, but not everything. So there's a lot that I think it's going to be more tense when you actually know a little bit of what's coming at the guy, as opposed to just going through 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's something I really, once I decided to do that, I kind of went back and reconstructed all 4 of the stories, all 3 of the successive stories, to really take advantage of that. There's stuff I set up in 4 that really is going to pay off in 3, at least in terms of how you read it. So that was a cool challenge, and I think it actually gave me a fun way as kind of a journeyman writer, or at least I think of myself that way. And it really gave me a way to look at, just stop, think about it in terms of how fun something is to read and what makes it fun to read, and how many cool surprises can I throw in by doing it in a different way. And that's really what kind of informed the choice to do that. So this is a preview art book I put together with a bunch of artwork. That's some of it's probably from what's going to be the final version of this story. Most of it's from different drafts that I have around. I have the artwork for it, but isn't going to be in the final published, issues 1 through 4 of it. So a few of those here. This was the initial pitch. I sent out to a few publishers, and I want to say 2018. Kind of shows the state of the galaxy. The world was not in the best of shape in Purgatory Underground. They had just kind of started recovering from a huge civil war. And we see here that in the 50 or so years that have happened in the meantime, things have not gotten any better. In fact, they've gotten a lot worse. So the whole galaxy is pretty much just this wrecked wasteland, and it's kind of the byproduct of all these wars, and then all the stresses that's placed on people. And, basically people didn't make good decisions, and things did go very badly. So we kind of encounter this crew. The captain here is the woman you see in most of the panels, is the granddaughter of one of the characters from Purgatory Underground. And we established that she's got one of her crewmen left. The other ones have died. She's really focused on keeping this last one alive. She feels a lot of guilt, a lot of desperation. And she's actually worried, there's a chance they might be the only people left in the whole galaxy. They're being hunted by these cyborgs who are kind of post-human characters. As I looked at, I really like the Mad Max movies where they kind of showed society slowly decaying. In the first one, it was kind of on its way there, but it was still a little bit normal. Things still kind of worked, and there was a lot of tension, I think, there. That especially, I only saw the Road Warrior when I was a kid. I think I saw Mad Max, the first one, when I was much older. And it was really creepy to see the society like going bad, but not quite there yet, knowing what's in store for all of them. And it's kind of one of the things that made me want to do things this way. But they're kind of in the bad part. They don't know what's out there. They got separated from the rest of their Starfleet. And these bad guys, the cyborgs, are kind of humans that found themselves, as these wars went on, stuck on planets that, just got left out of the supply chain. People were starving. And some people were able to kind of transplant themselves into robot bodies. It's, kind of a silly comic booky science fiction type thing. But that was their way to survive, as horrible as it is. And then you kind of see that once that happened, they were on a very different path from the rest of humanity. They had very different interests. They didn't need to eat or rest like other people did. And they found their needs, which I guess basically acceptance or to be, prioritized in some way. Didn't line up with the other people that had been just a little bit luckier than them. So, these two sides end up turning on each other, which leads to the world you see kind of in these panels. And the fun thing about that was I really like drawing all these desolate Blade Runner-y type environments. It was really cool. And it was fun to just kind of start with this really dramatic happenstance. They're all alone. They don't know what's happening. And set up this character, kind of her arc. And just kind of let them loose on this deserted world. And of course, I think you probably have guessed that they do run into Captain August, or someone who thinks he's Captain August at this point. And that's the end of the preview. So there's definitely, the whole book's written and laid out. So I'm going to just be doing the artwork once we wrap up this campaign, and hopefully start releasing that early next year, or maybe late this year. Have a few other projects in the work. And of course, more Scarlet Twilight. That one's also plotted out and ready to go as far as starting with the artwork. And and just wanted to, figure out the best thing to do next. I'm leaning towards doing this next. Like I said, this is my favorite franchise by far of the stuff I'm developing, and I just think it's fun to like go with this character a little bit. I think it's gonna be fun to see him get put through all the things that lead him to be in this place. He's in a pretty bad spot when the story starts, but one thing I think is interesting is as bad a spot as he's in and the galaxy's in. If you've read Purgatory Underground or want to read it, you can head over to Zoop because we still have about 12 hours left. He's already been through a lot. As a young man, he was through a lot. So he weathers these things a lot better than other people would. And I think that was one of the things that made it interesting. He's kind of going through the same things that this other character is about to go through or is going through. But he went through that a long time ago and has gone through it many times since. And we kind of see how that's changed who he is. He's pretty sullen in Purgatory Underground. He's a little wrong. He puts up with it pretty well, but he also has a pretty big chip on his shoulder. We see in August in this one, who's been through actually much more, but because he's older, because he's dealt with it a lot, is not necessarily as standoffish as he always was. Has always found ways to make the best of things because he's always had to make the best of things. And I think that's one cool thing to show the contrast between who he used to be in the first story, how he's done for himself as far as, just how he's taking care of himself, things like that. And there's a lot of cool stuff to set up there. So I wanted to show off some of the artwork here. Different versions. We see like some looks at what he's going to be like, look like in this story. He's obviously much older. I had some looks here at his costume designs, which were really fun to put together. My initial starting point was this one here in the bottom middle, which was based, believe it or not, on the Houston Astros uniforms from the 80s. These really cheesy stripes, super neon colors. And there was something very 70s and 80s about that, but in a not as in a plastic cartoon way or in a Star Wars type of way. It just felt like kind of the things I'd see growing up as a kid that were rusted out and old, or old T-shirts or old signage, kind of had that look to it. Those colors, those types of things. And because this story is so much about the decay of something, stuff that's left behind from a much nicer thing, that's kind of what started me off on wanting to go in that direction. Obviously, it evolved into, I think this costume here is the one we went with initially, or I think ultimately. And I love that one too. I think it just works a little better. But it did kind of start from this when you do this crazy, really far out other version of it. See some other looks at the character here, his environment. If you're a fan of Blade Runner or Ridley Scott in general, if you look at Alien or Blade Runner, some of his early stuff, I always love how backlit everything was. It made everything look kind of cold, remote. It could show off the detail in the room really well, and it's definitely something I'm looking to bring to this new series. You see kind of some other things here. He lives in this crashed ship, which was kind of inspired by the Autobot ship in Transformers. Saw a few preview pages today of the new Transformers comic from Skybound. It looks really cool. Pretty excited for that to come out. But that was definitely one of the things they built. I saw they were using that in that comic too, which is cool. A few more looks at August and his weapon here. In Purgatory Underground, they gave him this blaster that was really inspired by Steve McQueen's gun in, I think it's called Wanted Dead or Alive, where he's a bounty hunter. It's where he first kind of caught on as an old TV show. And he loses that in Purgatory Underground, but I wanted to give him a new weapon in this that was different, very unexpected. Because it kind of has anytime you have a sword, I think there's kind of a fantasy element to it, just in terms of the visual. It harkens back to that older stuff. So I wanted to give him something looked like that made you think of those sort of things, but also has some very sort of hard sci-fi, or what passes for it in my type of comic, reasons for existing. So that was the idea behind giving him that sword, and that plays a really cool role in this story. And I think the other stories I'm going to do, it's cool the way that I think we're going to introduce that down the line. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see. This is kind of a profile page on the other main character of the next story, which is named Captain Williams. She's the descendant of this character here, who was a big part of the August story. He's going to play a big part in 2 and 3 as well. But it was kind of cool to have this connection to parts of his old life, people he misses, people he used to work with, and his former allies and stuff. So I think he also feels when he runs into this person, it's a huge coincidence. He's just the granddaughter of someone he was very close with, and he does feel some kind of like responsibility to take care of this person. Not that he wouldn't otherwise, but just was cool, a cool way to tie into his history. And then so much of this character also, she's going through a lot of the things he went through in Purgatory Underground. So a lot of good things to play off there. I think are a lot of fun. Also have some more artwork here of her, some initial looks at her. They have a few different takes on her uniform. That came pretty quick because I wanted it to be an evolution of uniforms in Purgatory Underground. So I brought a little more color in. In this version, I actually had more color than the final version. But if you see there, she has these pieces kind of on the shoulders. I do like that, but I thought I was overdoing it just a bit and simplified it to what we kind of see up here. But and in here, but it's cool. I thought I really like doing that because it was it looks like the at first glance like August's old costume, but you can kind of see it's evolved a little bit. Like Starfleet uniforms actually, like they tried to do a few times, they end up really going very different directions from year to year. But if you look at like the Next Generation to the movies with that cast, that was a good evolution, and it's kind of the sort of thing I was trying to do here. A few more looks at these characters. The ships, some of their weapons, and then some looks at the world they live in. They're on this desolate moon, which is a lot of great chances for me to draw wrecked ships, rusted metal, just really good sci-fi stuff. So there's a good chance to do that. See some more views of August's ship and some different designs. And one cool thing about that is if you, this is the final design I'm going to use for the book. If you look closely, and if you've read Purgatory Underground, or like I said, you can always pop over to zoop.gg and get that comic. We have a little bit of time left to go. But this is actually one of the bad guy ships from that, repurposed. So it's going to be fun, I think, to just have that there. So you see that it is, one of the old ships of his old adversaries. And then when we get to where we explain how that happened, how he ended up with this, how it became such a big part of his life, I think that's going to be really interesting to do in that way, to kind of do backwards. So some fun things there. Some looks at our villains here. These went through a lot of different changes. Their story was always pretty consistent. I had an idea of what their conflicts were, what their objectives were, all that stuff, where they came from. But I found as I was writing the story, and especially drawing different versions of the story, I had to make a lot of changes. They were initially going to look like this version in the top left, which is very transformery. I like a lot of things about that. And I always want everything in this franchise to look like toys, as much as I can, to sort of just come to life and do stuff. I found that because a big part of the plot is that they can get hit and sort of heal pretty quickly, and which presents a lot of problems for our heroes. There was really no surface on this type of design where you'd be able to read that clearly. That worked with a lot of different types of layouts. To do that, I think you need a pretty big solid area where you show a hole and you show it closing up. So had to get rid of this design, ended up with what you're kind of seeing here, the more aqua versions of them. Here's a sketch of the first sort of character design of that type of version of them. And that worked pretty well. But as I went back to this, I worked on Purgatory Underground, I worked with Scarlet Twilight, and kind of came back to this story and realized that this sort of green color, I really like that color scheme. It's actually based on an old Robotech toy I had when I was a kid that I, believe it or not, found in the street. My parents let me keep, but based it on that, but I thought it just didn't have the pop it needed to. So what you see down here is the version I'm going to use for the final, which is just a little more heavy metal. I think makes more of an impact, and I think also it has a lot more of the character of these guys in them. There's a lot of things there. They've lost their humanity, so they do a lot of things about their appearance are different attempts to kind of they lost their humanity. They're losing parts of their mental wherewithal. So a lot of what you see, how they I guess package themselves more or less, how they've added to their armor and everything like that over the years reflects a lot of them trying to hold on to what they've lost. So that was a really fun thing to do, and I think this version has a lot more impact, just partially because things that look like armor and have spikes are pretty cool. These wings are kind of heavy metalish and cool. Fun things to draw. They look very threatening. But it also, I think, had a lot more character to them. So That's kind of what went into that. Another look at our timeline here. And that's the end of the preview. But that's available. I'm going to throw that in the comments here. That book I just showed you is available for free right now at the link tree. There's also an 85 plus page preview of Purgatory Underground's collection that you can look at right now. Totally free. It's just a PDF. You can get on Google Drive and look at it. Like I said, I knew that hardcover is a big price point, and you kind of have to do that to make it a collection and include all this stuff. But I definitely understand that's a big ask if you can't see a lot of what you're getting and you don't know what you're getting. So a lot of these free previews are just there so you can look at it. You can say, hey, is this really worth it? Is there really a lot of cool stuff here? I want to show you that. So that's why that's there. Definitely check that out on the link tree. You can get to that in many different file sharing services. And then hopefully head over to zoop.gg. I'm going to throw that link in there as well to check out the Purgatory Underground collection. Have 78 backers right now. We need a few more to make our goal in the 11 hours we have left. Yeah, I hope if you're watching this now or later, check out the free preview, check out the campaign. Definitely want to show people that A, there's a lot of great stuff in this book. B, there's going to be a lot more great stuff with this character. It's definitely going to be worth, if you're into Star Wars, if you're into He-Man, if you're into this old stuff, these types of adventures, it's going to be worth it to kind of go along with this character. Have a lot more planned for him, and I think it's going to be fun to do, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to read. So coming up in a half an hour here, I'm going to leave it here for now. I'm going to be on Travis Gibbs' channel tonight at 10, talk with some other indie curators and close out the campaign. So head over there. I'm going to throw that link in the chat as well. Let me find that real quick. How do I share this? There we go. So I'm going to throw this in here so you can come by at 10 and basically an hour from now and see me talk about this more and see some other great indie books from some other great creators. So definitely check that out. Definitely check out the campaign if you're into Star Wars, He-Man, Mad Max, any of that stuff. I think you're going to really like this book. So hope you give it a shot. We have 11 hours left. We have a long way to go. And, I'm just excited to get this book out there. So I'm going to leave you there for now. And if you head over to the other channel at 10 o'clock, I will talk to you there. Thanks again, and I will talk to you later.